Welcome to Virgo Potens. I invite you to give this video a like and to subscribe to my channel. YouTube has introduced a great feature called Super Thanks. If you enjoy this video, you can support my work or say thank you by clicking on the Super Thanks icon. It's similar to offering support through a super chat. This Virgo Potens production is the narration of chapters 1 to 3 of Book 12 of The City of God by St. Augustine. It is narrated by Tony Capobianco. The music which accompanies this video comes from the traditional Latin Mass at Prince of Peace Catholic Church. The text of The City of God and the paintings used in this production are in the public domain. Book 12, Chapter 1. That the nature of the angels, both good and bad, is one and the same. It has already, in the preceding book, been shown how the two cities originated among the angels. Before I speak of the creation of man and show how the cities took their rise so far as regards the race of rational mortals, I see that I must first, so far as I can, adduce what may demonstrate that it is not incongruous and unsuitable to speak of a society composed of angels and men together. So that there are not 4 cities or societies, 2, namely, of angels and as many of men, but rather 2 in all, one composed of the good, the other of the wicked, angels or men indifferently. That the contrary propensities in good and bad angels have arisen not from a difference in their nature and origin, since God, the good author and creator of all essences, created them both, but from a difference in their wills and desires. It is impossible to doubt. While some steadfastly continued in that which was the common good of all, namely in God himself, and in his eternity, truth, and love. Others, being enamored rather of their own power, as if they could be their own good, lapsed to this private good of their own, from that higher and beatific good which was common to all, and bartering the lofty dignity of eternity for the inflation of pride, the most assured verity for the slyness of vanity, uniting love for factious partisanship, they became proud, deceived, envious. The cause, therefore, of the blessedness of the good is adherence to God, and so the cause of the other's misery will be found in the contrary, that is, in their not adhering to God. Wherefore, if when the question is asked, why are the former blessed, it is rightly answered, because they adhere to God, and when it is asked, why are the latter miserable, it is rightly answered, because they do not adhere to God. Then there is no other good for the rational or intellectual creature save God only. Thus, though it is not every creature that can be blessed, for beasts, trees, stones, and things of that kind have not this capacity, yet that creature which has the capacity cannot be blessed of itself, since it is created out of nothing, but only by him by whom it has been created. For it is blessed by the possession of that whose loss makes it miserable. He then, who is blessed not in another, but in himself, cannot be miserable, because he cannot lose himself. Accordingly, we say that there is no unchangeable good, but the one, true, blessed God. That the things which he made are indeed good, because from him, yet mutable because made not out of him, but out of nothing, although, therefore, they are not the supreme good, for God is a greater good. Yet those mutable things which can adhere to the immutable good, and so be blessed, are very good. For so completely is he their good, that without him they cannot be but wretched. And the other created things in the universe are not better on this account, that they cannot be miserable. For no one would say that the other members of the body are superior to the eyes because they cannot be blind. But as the sentient nature, even when it feels pain, is superior to the stony, which can feel none, so the rational nature, even when wretched, is more excellent than that which lacks reason or feeling, and can therefore experience no misery. And since this is so, then, in this nature, which has been created so excellent that though it be mutable itself, it cannot yet secure its blessedness, by adhering to the immutable good, the supreme God. And since it is not satisfied unless it be perfectly blessed, and cannot be thus blessed save in God, in this nature, I say, not to adhere to God is manifestly a fault. Now every fault injures the nature, and is consequently contrary to the nature. The creature, therefore, which cleaves to God differs from those who do not by nature, but by fault. And yet, by this very fault, the nature itself is proved to be very noble and admirable. For that nature is certainly praised, the fault of which is justly blamed. For we justly blame the fault because it mars the praiseworthy nature. As then, when we say that blindness is a defect of the eyes, we prove that sight belongs to the nature of the eyes. And when we say that deafness is a defect of the ears, hearing is thereby proved to belong to their nature. So, when we say that it is a fault of the angelic creature that it does not cleave to God, we hereby most plainly declare that it pertained to its nature to cleave to God. And who can worthily conceive or express how great a glory that is, to cleave to God, so as to live to him, to draw wisdom from him, to delight in him, and to enjoy this so great good without death, error, or grief? And thus, since every vice is an injury of the nature, that very vice of the wicked angels, their departure from God, is sufficient proof that God created their nature so good that it is an injury to it not to be with God. Chapter 2. That there is no entity contrary to the divine, because non-entity seems to be that which is wholly opposite to him who supremely and always is. This may be enough to prevent anyone from supposing, when we speak of the apostate angels, that they could have another nature, derived, as it were, from some different origin, and not from God. From the great impiety of this error we shall disentangle ourselves the more readily and easily, the more distinctly we understand that which God spoke by the angel when he sent Moses to the children of Israel. Quote, I am that I am. End quote. For since God is the supreme existence, that is to say, supremely is, and is therefore unchangeable, the things that he made he empowered to be, but not to be supremely like himself. To some he communicated a more ample, to others a more limited existence, and thus arranged the natures of beings in ranks. For as from sapere comes sapientia, so from esse comes essentia, a new word indeed, which the old Latin writers did not use, but which is naturalized in our day, that our language may not want an equivalent for the Greek ousia. For this is expressed word for word by essentia. Consequently, to that nature which supremely is, and which created all else that exists, no nature is contrary save that which does not exist, for non-entity is the contrary of that which is, and thus there is no being contrary to God, the supreme being, and author of all beings whatsoever. Chapter 3. That the enemies of God are so, not by nature, but by will, which, as it injures them, injures a good nature. For if vice does not injure, it is not vice. In Scripture, they are called God's enemies who oppose his rule, not by nature, but by vice, having no power to hurt him, but only themselves. For they are his enemies, not through their power to hurt, but by their will to oppose him. For God is unchangeable and wholly proof against injury. Therefore, the vice which makes those who are called his enemies resist him is an evil not to God, but to themselves. And to them it is an evil, solely because it corrupts the good of their nature. It is not nature, therefore, but vice, which is contrary to God. For that which is evil is contrary to the good. And who will deny that God is the supreme good? Vice, therefore, is contrary to God, as evil to good. Further, the nature it vitiates is a good, and therefore to this good also it is contrary. But while it is contrary to God only as evil to good, it is contrary to the nature it vitiates, both as evil and as hurtful. For to God no evils are hurtful, but only to natures mutable and corruptible, though, by the testimony of the vices themselves, originally good. For, were they not good, vices could not hurt them. For how do they hurt them but by depriving them of integrity, beauty, welfare, virtue, and, in short, whatever natural good vice is wont to diminish or destroy? But if there be no good to take away, then no injury can be done. And, consequently, there can be no vice. For it is impossible that there should be a harmless vice. Whence we gather that though vice cannot injure the unchangeable good, it can injure nothing but good, because it does not exist where it does not injure. This, then, may be thus formulated. Vice cannot be in the highest good, and cannot be but in some good. Things solely good, therefore, can in some circumstances exist. Things solely evil, never. For even those natures which are vitiated by an evil will, so far indeed as they are vitiated, are evil. But in so far as they are natures, they are good. And when a vitiated nature is punished, besides the good it has in being a nature, it has this also, that it is not unpunished. For this is just, and certainly everything just is a good. For no one is punished for natural but for voluntary vices. For even the vice which by force of habit and long continuance has become a second nature, had its origin in the will. For at present we are speaking of the vices of the nature, which has a mental capacity for that enlightenment which discriminates between what is just and what is unjust. End of chapters 1 to 3 of Book 12 of The City of God by St. Augustine. Narrated by Tony Capobianco. Guardian Angels and Anti-Guardian Angels by St. Bridget of Sweden. The following text comes from Prophecies and Revelations by St. Bridget of Sweden, Book 1, Chapter 9. Narration by Tony Capobianco. The words of the Queen of Heaven to her beloved daughter, about the wonderful love the Son had for his Virgin Mother, and about how the Mother of Christ was conceived within the most chaste marriage and sanctified in the womb. She tells how she was assumed body and soul into heaven, and about the power of her name, and about the good and evil angels assigned to men for their protection or trial. Chapter 9. Quote, I am the Queen of Heaven. Love my Son, for he is most worthy. When you have him, you have all that is worthwhile. He is also most desirable. When you have him, you have all that is desirable. Love him too, for he is most virtuous. When you have him, you have every virtue. I want to tell you how wonderful his love for my body and soul was, and how much he honored my name. My Son loved me before I loved him, since he is my Creator. He united my father and mother in a marriage so chaste that there could be not found a more chaste marriage at that time. They never wanted to come together except in accordance with the law, and only then with the intention of bringing forth offspring. when an angel revealed to them that they would give birth to the Virgin, from whom the salvation of the world would come, they would rather have died than to come together in carnal love. Lust was dead in them. I assure you that when they did come together, it was because of divine love and because of the angel's message, not out of carnal desire, but against their will and out of a holy love for God. In this way, my flesh was put together by their seed and through divine love. Then, when my body had been made and formed, God infused the created soul into it from his divinity, and the soul was immediately sanctified along with the body, and the angels guarded and served it day and night. When my soul was sanctified and joined to its body, my mother felt such great joy that it would have been impossible to describe it. Afterwards, when my lifetime had been accomplished, my Son first raised up my soul, for it was the mistress of the body, to a more excellent place than others in heaven, right next to his divinity. Later, he also raised up my body in such a manner that no other creature's body is so close to God as mine. See how much my Son loved my soul and body? Yet there are some people with a malevolent spirit who deny that I was assumed into heaven body and soul, and also others who simply do not know any better. But this is a most certain truth. I, with body and soul, was assumed to the divinity. Hear now how much my Son honored my name. My name is Mary. As it is said in the Gospel, when the angels hear this name, they rejoice in their mind and thank God for the great mercy that he worked through me and with me, and because they see my Son's humanity glorified in his divinity. Those within the fire of purgatory rejoice exceedingly, just like a sick and bedridden man does if he receives a word of comfort that pleases his soul. He is suddenly overjoyed. When the good angels hear my name, they immediately move closer to the righteous for whom they are guardians, and rejoice over their progress in good deeds and virtues. All humans have been given both good angels for their protection and bad angels to test them. The good angels are not separated from God. They serve the soul without leaving God. They are constantly in his sight. Yet they work to inflame and incite the soul to do good. All the demons, however, shudder with fear at the name of Mary. When they hear the name Mary, they immediately release a soul out of the claws with which they had held her. Just as a bird or hawk, with its claws and beak embedded into its prey, releases it immediately if it hears a sound, but soon returns when it sees that no action follows, so do the demons, frightened when they hear my name, release the soul. But they return and fly back as fast as an arrow if no improvement follows. No one is so cold in his love of God unless he is damned, that he will not experience the devil releasing him from his habitual sins if only he invokes my name with the true intention of never returning to his evil deeds. The devil will never return to him unless he resumes the will to commit mortal sins. Sometimes, though, the devil is allowed to trouble him for the sake of his greater reward. However, the devil shall never own him. End quote. End of Chapter 9, Book 1, from Prophecies and Revelations by St. Bridget of Sweden. How to Discern Spirits, St. Bridget of Sweden. The following text comes from Prophecies and Revelations by St. Bridget of Sweden, Book 1, Chapter 4. Narration by Tony Capobianco. Our Lord Jesus Christ's words to his bride about how she should not fear or think that the revelations told to her by him come from an evil spirit, and about how to discern an evil spirit from a good one. Chapter 4. Quote, I am your Creator and Redeemer. Why did you fear and doubt my words? Why did you wonder whether they came from a good or an evil spirit? Tell me, what have you found in my words that your conscience did not tell you to do? Or have I ever commanded you anything against reason? End quote. The bride answered, No, all you told me was completely true and reasonable, and I was badly mistaken. The bridegroom, Jesus, answered her, quote, I showed you 3 things from which you could recognize the good spirit. I invited you to honor your God, who made you and gave you all the good things you have. Your reason also tells you to honor him above all things. I further invited you to keep the true faith, that is, to believe that nothing has been created without God, nor may be made without God. I also invited you to love reasonable work and continence in all things, for the world was created for man's sake, in order that he may use it according to his reasonable needs and not in excess. In the same way, you may also recognize the unclean spirit, the devil, from three opposing things. He tempts and advises you to seek and desire your own praise, and to be proud of the things given you. He also tempts you into unbelief and intemperance in all your limbs and in all things, and makes your heart inflamed by them. Sometimes he also deceives men under the guise of a good spirit. This is why I commanded you to always examine your conscience and reveal it to spiritual men of wisdom. Therefore, do not doubt that the good Spirit of God is with you when you desire nothing but God and are completely inflamed by Him. Only I can do this, and it is impossible for the devil to come near you then. He also cannot come near to any evil man unless I allow it, either because of his sins or some secret judgment that is known only to me. For he is my creature like all other things. He was created good by me, but made himself evil by his own malice. Therefore, I am Lord over him. Therefore, those who accuse me do so falsely when they say that those who serve me with great and godly devotion are insane and possessed by the devil. They consider me to be like a man who gives his chaste and trusting wife over to adultery. Such a one should I be if I allowed a righteous and God-loving man to be handed over to the devil. But because I am faithful, the devil will never rule over the soul of any man who devoutly serves me. Although my friends sometimes seem to be insane or senseless, it is not because the devil is tormenting them, or because they serve me with fervent and godly devotion. It is rather because of some defect or weakness in the brain, or some other hidden reason, which serves to humble them. It may also happen, sometimes, that the devil receives power from me over the bodies of good men for the sake of their future reward, or that he darkens their consciences. But he can never rule the souls of those who have faith in me and who love me. End quote. End of Chapter 4 from Book 1 of the Prophecies and Revelations by St. Bridget of Sweden. Welcome to the Virgo Potens YouTube channel. If you enjoy this video, give it a like. I also invite you to subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss new content. Please prayerfully consider supporting my work by becoming a patron of Virgo Potens on Patreon and/or by buying one of my books. My ebooks are available on Amazon as well as on the Apple Bookstore. For those who prefer a physical copy rather than an ebook, my book, Spiritual Warfare, Know Thy Enemy, is also available as a paperback on Amazon. If you are interested in making a one-time contribution, I suggest that you do so by simply buying one of my books. I am thankful for your support. Links to Patreon and to my books will be posted in the comments section of this video. The continuation of this work isn't possible without you. Lastly, and most importantly, please pray for me. May the Virgin Most Powerful guide and protect you.